Basil is one of my favorite plants in the summer garden, and I'm kind of sad to see this year's basil coming to an end. My plants got so tall this year. You can see I'm like 5'6", and this plant is as tall as I am, maybe a tiny bit taller. So I wanted to talk to you today about how to save basil seeds, because this is one of those plants that's so simple to save your own seeds. You should never have to buy it after you bought it one time. So here's what you're going to do. You want to leave the plant completely alone and let it flower as you reach the end of your season. So you can see here, these flowers are almost spent, but like, here's an example. It's a pretty white flower and they smell so good even when they're blooming. But to harvest your seeds are coming from inside these flowers. So what you're going to want to do is actually cut some of the flowers off after they have completely dried on the plant. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm bringing you in here really close so you can watch what I'm going to do. So you see here, we have a flower stem. I'm going to take my scissors and cut it. This one is completely dry. You can see the flowers there are brown and dried out. So you want to carefully cut that. Then what we're going to do is grab it and we're going to strip all of that off the stem. Now, in your hand, you are going to have a mixture of things. You're going to have a lot of waste, okay? Some of this dried flower matter that you don't need. What I like to do is take it, rub it in my hands to kind of break it up. And then you want to remove any of the big pieces. And I go in and I gently blow away the waste until all I'm left with are some beautiful basil seeds. I'm going to pick out a few more little pieces here. Let me show you what I got. These are basil seeds. See these tiny, they're so tiny, tiny little black seeds. That's basil seeds. And they are all inside these dried flowers. So today I have a lot of these that I'm going to harvest and take in and sort so we can save our seeds to grow basil for next year. So I'm only going to cut the ones that are completely dry. I'm going to leave anything with green like this on the plant. I'm looking for stems that have fully dried out like this. And that's what we're going to save our seeds from, the ones that are fully dried. So, you know, this time of year, the garden is not necessarily quite as beautiful because I leave a lot of my plants to die in the garden. I don't just rip them out when the season ends because I want them to kind of finish their life cycle and produce seeds so that I don't have to buy seeds again next year. Because, like, let's just face it, garden seeds are expensive. And why would I pay for more basil seeds when I can literally save my own with a little bit of patience and a little bit of planning? So if you haven't done it yet and you still have your basil in your garden, go cut some of these dried flower stems and save them, and you'll have basil seeds for next year. One question that I get pretty regularly on Instagram when I talk about basil is how do you get it to get big? Because most basil plants, like when you see them at the store, they're like this big, right? 4 or 5 inches tall. Mine end up being well over 5 feet tall by the end of the season. The key to growing big, beautiful basil is to cut it. Don't be afraid to trim your basil, and it works in your favor because when you cut the basil, you're actually harvesting it to use. So use your basil. It's really that simple. Cut from the top, you know, don't cut it completely to the ground, but harvest little bits of basil all season. And each time you cut it, it encourages brand new growth. And so one tiny little basil stem, you cut it, it's gonna branch off and create 2. You cut those, you're gonna get 2 more. And before you know it, you get this big, massive, beautiful bush that can grow really, really tall and provide you with a ton of basil. And then ultimately, you get a bunch of basil seeds too. So when you grow basil, don't be afraid to cut it. In fact, the more you cut it, the more it will grow. That's it for our basil tips for the day. I hope you're blessed. Have a good day. We'll talk to you next time.